peoples? It's your boy Remo, aka Mr. Rich Threads, back at you with another one. Let's talk fashion. We are back for another episode, powered by the JBT Network. So let's just get right into it this week because the momentum is momentuming right now. And let's talk about the influence of sports athletes as a personality, intertwining with fashion, culture, music, and everything, and still being present in today's time. And I would like to start off with the one and only Michael Jeffrey Jordan. What could you not say about Michael Jordan in that era? From the 80s, 90s, 2000s, even to today's modern time, Jordan has been cemented, whether it be from the ball head, whether it be from the loop earrings, whether it be that aura, that swag, that walk. You see Michael Jordan walk to the point where, rest in peace, Kobe Bryant emulated his walk. That's just when you just have the culture in a headlock. He was known for Ferraris, cigars, gambling. He liked a good bourbon every once in a while. But what really locked us in with Jordan was his performance on the court and them damn sneakers. Some of the most iconic silhouettes, whether it be some of your favorites, whether it be the ones, the threes, the fours, the Olympic sixes, like the silhouettes go on and they still go on to today's time where he's had signings with the Jordan brand athletes, whether it be Roy Jones in boxing, Carmelo Anthony in basketball, who's one of the first Jordan branded athletes, Derek Jeter in baseball. I think Randy Moss was a Jordan athlete at one point in time, and the culture keeps revolving around this man to the point where he's just been cemented. Go on the court, go in the streets. And he's a billionaire. So shout out to Jordan for always influencing our community, whether it be on and off the court. And we're going to follow up Jordan by another iconic athlete of the 90s, which was Deion Sanders, prime time. He was known as, the greatest show on turf, whether it be the football turf or the baseball turf, because he was a two-sport athlete. Don't forget that. But Deion Sanders is one of the most flashiest, flamboyant, great talker. Of course, he had the gold chains. He was in music videos. He was really the golden star in football during that time. He did win championships with the 49ers and the Cowboys. I believe it was back-to-back, if I'm not mistaken. But aside from those, he did release two sneakers by Nike. I believe they were called the Diamond Turfs, the ones and twos, which have been released up to this year. And he is the current head coach of the Colorado College team out there in Denver. And, he had a really big bang coming on the scene because of his personality. Back in the 90s, he's the same flamboyant, boisterous type of guy he is today. Just a more humbled adult present, but who Deion was on court and why we loved him has never changed, because why? His performance never gave you a lackluster feel. If he was going to show up, he was going to show up to give a performance, a crowd-pleasing performance for you guys watching on TV or wherever it is. YouTube, you can check it out now. His highlights is damn near second to none. And thirdly, I wanted to talk about, a little historian. The first ever black heavyweight champion, Jack Johnson. Jack Johnson was a champ during the 20s, the 1920s that is, and he was the first black heavyweight champion. And he did this all while rolling around with the furs, custom suits, flashy cars. And believe it or not, he did get shunned for his relationship because during that time, it was kind of, frowned upon to be in relations with a white woman, which he kept fly too, because I seen a picture of her or two with furs on and all of that. And he grew up during the Harlem Renaissance era. So we know Harlem always been known to put that ish on. So, in New York, Harlem's one of those towns where, it's not much falling off from fashion, and that's why we here to continuously talk about this fashion. So I want to give a big salute to Jack Johnson. Y'all check him out, man, and see some of the fits that he pulled off, especially during that era. To be a black man, confident, you're a winner, a champion, and you paid. Come on now, it's only right you get fly. So shout out to Jack Johnson once again. Well, unfortunately, there is another side of this where the culture, the influence, hip hop, music, the streets become a distraction to our athletes. And we've seen it countless a bunch of times, but I'm gonna highlight a few people that, personally I felt that were affected by this most. And I'm gonna start with the former undisputed champion from Brooklyn, New York, Super Zab Judah. And I want to highlight Zab because Zab was at the tip of the iceberg. He was the creme de la creme of Brooklyn during that time frame. And we couldn't, he was a superhero to us all because we seen him in the flashy cars. We seen him with the gold grills. We seen him with the rappers. And after periods of time, this kind of took a toll on Zab's career where boxing wasn't the main focus. Being out, being around gambling, being around his homeboys in the street, it took up more of a precedence than his focus, and he paid the price by losing to Costa Zoo. And when he did take that, unfortunate fall of defeat, it wasn't a surprise to everybody because we knew Zab's main focus wasn't in the ring. And from that point on, he kind of gained traction back, but it was never at that height, that peak. So we always wondered, like, if Zab had that Mayweather-esque focus, what could have been, would have been. But, his story continues. You still see him in the media. He's had time with matchmaking, and he comments on fights, and he has hands in with Devin Haney these days. So it's like, it's a story that's still being told, and I'm happy that, he's found the other side of happiness. And sometimes it isn't all about sports, but as an older sportsman in the game, you realize your mistakes and things that you could have did better. So I'm glad he's still around to guide the youth and help them along their journey in fashion, hip hop, sports, and the culture as a whole. And this next athlete I like to discuss, I wouldn't say was before my time, but growing up as a shorty, I really heard a lot of stories about Len Bias and how good of an athlete he was and his projection of where they thought he would be in the NBA and his placement. And that's why he was taken number 2 in the overall 1986 NBA draft by the Boston Celtics. And he was looked at as joining a team that was already developed. And I believe they just won a championship prior to him being drafted. And he was going to be looked at as another asset alongside like the names of like Michael Jordan and Magic Johnson. His talent spoke for itself where they viewed him in that vein. And unfortunately, we never got to see that opportunity because of the way that the culture was during that era. And it was the 80s, which was the cocaine era, which rolled into the crack era and brought a lot of changes to families across the United States, it was the drug era, war on drugs in the United States. But he unfortunately succumbed to this because cocaine during that time was known as a party drug, and he was celebrating his draft, and that was the outcome. So Len Bias never really got a chance to show us what he could have been on the NBA level because the influence of society took that chance away from him. So unfortunately, salute to that man, but that's a story it never got to see its outcome, man. And having strong people around you sometimes to avoid you from doing certain things and living certain lifestyles could have avoided this. Give you an example, like a guy like LeBron James, he has never had a stain on his record as a professional athlete, and that's coming out of high school. And you know why that's so important to note? It's because it continues his legacy. in a good vein. They never look at him as less based on the fact that he's always kept himself in the right light, in the right view of the people themselves. So that's why people champion him and do the comparisons of Michael Jordan or LeBron James, Kobe Bryant or LeBron. Like, it continues because he's always been an athlete that stays in the culture, but he knows how to navigate having a strong team around him. So, unfortunately, Len Bias was our athlete that we had to speak about today. And another athlete that was during my era, Sebastian Telfair out of Coney Island, Brooklyn, New York. Actually, the cousin of Stephon Marbury, another Brooklyn legend. But we're talking about Sebastian Telfair because he was one of the greatest high school basketball players that came out in that same era as LeBron James. He was on Slam magazines. He was on photos with Jay-Z. He played at the Rucker. He played at the Garden back-to-back years and for the PSL championship. What didn't Sebastian have in his hands? He was drafted to the NBA, straight out of high school. He lived a life that everybody in New York City wanted to, but the problem was, did it come too fast? Was so much given to him that he couldn't handle it? Sometimes, the pressure of your community, sometimes the pressure of being in hip-hop, sometimes the pressure of the focusedness not being there causes things to just start going left. Little by little, we started hearing about arrests, gun possessions, suspensions, and we never really seen him take that next leap because the distraction started early in his tenure in the NBA. In 2006, he was arrested by the Portland Trailblazers for gun possession on a team plane. And then after that point, it just started snowballing. He started getting traded from team to team to team. And then he found himself out of the league. It's unfortunate in most situations that, people find themselves in that nature. But, having so much so fast becoming a distraction where, once again, we said, what's more important, the sport, your profession, or the outside noise? And unfortunately, he was another athlete that, took a turn to the left because so much was coming so fast. And there's other names you can then mention, like Latrell Sprewell, whether it be Shawn Kemp. Like, a lot of athletes go through it to the point where it's like your best bet is to be a cultivator of the culture for the future. And most of these guys are doing that, and I salute them for doing that. So, let's stay focused as a culture, as a community, and make sure, the outcome is best for all of us. But on that note, that's all I got for you this week. I'm going to see y'all next week. Shout out to the JBT, Just Boxing Talk community, followed by Rich Threads, richthreads.com. Check us out, get some fly merch. And stay tuned, man. I'll see you next week. Peace.